this week. We were basking in being the only place in America, pretty much, that wasn't cold in the weekend, and we were sporting 75, 80 in different parts of the state. That has changed, and it's likely to get even nippier as we get into the weekend. So I know this is not something that some people say, "Oh, I'd rather it be 0 degrees than 102." Some people say that. Trust me, I would not want that. I can deal with the heat. That's not a problem. It's like the cold becomes difficult. So hopefully everybody is doing well. I want to thank Grace Christian School again for hosting us. I know we've been here in the past, and I appreciate the great job you do. Barry, the principal, thank you. We also have our Education Commissioner, Kamutus, here, and he's doing a great job and very, very strong across a whole range of issues. So as you can imagine, this is School Choice Week nationwide. It's really something that's important for a lot of people, and there's been no state that has even come close to doing on school choice what we have here in the free state of Florida. And, we'll talk about some of the choice options, but I just think it's telling. We embarked on this mission, the first year as governor. We had some limited choice, but it wasn't what we needed, and so we did that. And we were just able to announce the other week when I was given my State of the State address that we have registered now the highest graduation rate in the history of the state of Florida, 92.2%. And so we approach this understanding that the goal of state policy is to make sure that kids get a high-quality education. The goal of state policy is not to preserve pre-existing bureaucracies above all else. The goal of state policy is not to benefit school unions at the expense of families and kids. The goal is ultimately, can a student have access to high-quality education and make the most of their own God-given talents? And there's more than one way to do that. When I was growing up in Florida, it was kind of like you lived where you lived, and that was kind of the school that you went to. You could go to private, but it was really based on whether your family had enough money to be able to afford the private school tuition. Well, now we're in a much different environment, and there's no place in the country where parents have more high-quality, meaningful choice options than in Florida. I mean, think about it. Just think about school districts, because as we are doing more charter and private choice, school districts have had to offer choice within districts. And so if you're in like Miami-Dade County, you can go to a district school that's not the one in your neighborhood. Maybe they have a program that's good for you. Maybe there's other reasons why you would do that. So we actually have robust school choice, even within the school districts, which many states do not allow. Then you look at what we have with charter schools. So charter schools are public schools, but they're not run by the school district, and generally speaking, and they're not influenced by the school unions. And I think that that's something that's really, really important. I mean, we've done a lot on teacher pay since I've been governor. So because you would say, oh, you need more funding. So you'd send funding to the school districts from the state, and it would never end up going to teacher pay, the bureaucracies, this, that, all these other things. So we said, all right, we're just going to create a part in the budget. The only thing this can be used for is increased teachers. So we sent it, and we started maybe $500 million. We're now asking for this year in my budget, and I think we're probably going to get support in the legislature, $1.5 billion just for teacher. That's it. And And so we've been able to increase the average minimum salary by 20%. We also have the highest now in the Southeast, and great. But as we do that, you get the money. It can only be used for teacher salary, and I have to have Stassi's going out having to police because the unions are withholding the pay increase for teachers because they're using it as leverage to bargain for other things. And so how many, they still have outstanding? So right now, we did $1.35 billion in current year budget just for teacher pay. went into effect, the budget, July 1st of last year. And today we still, out of 67 count, we have 11 school districts that have not implemented any of the teacher salary increases because they're concerned. So it's like, why would you do it? So you can understand why a charter would want to be free from the politics of that. That's having an agenda. That's not doing what's right for the teachers if you're withholding. If you were doing what's right for the teachers, you'd have got that money out immediately and increased the salaries immediately. So the charter, they can operate separate from that, and they have a little bit more freedom to innovate. You know, the thing about charter is that they don't get any students as a matter of right, like it's either parents have confidence to send or not. And so, you know, some charters have done, I mean, we have some of the best charter schools in the country. Some don't do well, then the parents move and then move their kids out, and then you do it. So you have that. So they always have to fight for that. But I think it's interesting, if you just took our charter population in Florida, 400,000 students, demographically more disadvantaged, but yet, that 400,000, if it was its own state, which that is actually more than some states have in America in K-12 total, if it was its own state, it would rank in the top 5 for student performance. So it just shows you, you know, you just need the right tools you can do. Now, we also have embraced homeschool and made sure our homeschool families had support, you know, they need. And that could be involved with a lot of things like, you know, you're homeschooled, you still can play sports, you know, at your local school, participate in activities. And so we've supported that. Also, our scholarships now, parents are able to use those ESAs to get access to tutoring and supplies and books and all that other stuff. So that's been a huge, huge thing. But then, of course, we have our private scholarships that have really changed the game. So when I became governor, we had about 100,000 kids on scholarship. And it was effectively capped because it was related to corporate tax credit scholarships. You had a Supreme Court decision that had happened, I think in like the late 90s, sometime in maybe early 2000s, which said you couldn't have school choice effectively where parents control the money. The only reason you could do tax credit scholarship is because it never actually went into the government's coffers. And so that's the distinction that was drawn. We didn't think that the one decision was right about not having direct scholarships, so we did direct scholarships. And my first month as governor, we replaced 3 Supreme Court justices who were against scholarships with 3 who were in favor of them. And that basically removed that impediment to be able to get the scholarships in the hands of these families. And so we did it, and we've grown the program. And then a few years back, we went to totally universal. So we started off basically, it was basically poor, working class, even middle class would get it. Now we're basically just like, look, the money follows the student. If you make 50 grand, 150, we're not going to parse that. Money will follow the student. And so we now have over 500,000 students on scholarships with our family empowerment program. And so I think that's more than probably the rest of the country combined, if you want to know the truth. I mean, so that's... And so you now have an ability, if you're low income, because, you know, look, we've got single moms that are working and you know, they're not making, you know, $250,000 a year, right? I mean, you know, they're making $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 and probably wouldn't have the wherewithal to send to private without these scholarships. And so I think it's been really, really critical. And now you're in a situation where you have some options between even the school district, the charter schools, and then where you can take your private scholarship money to do. And it's our belief that when you have those options, parents are going to go to the environment that's best for their kids. And then that's not always obvious. Certainly an outsider can't necessarily do that, but this is something they've done. So it's been very, very successful. And here's some of the results. So we've seen increase in school grades. 71% of all graded schools, either A or B in 25, compared to just 64% the previous year. Percentage of A schools grew from 38 to 44%, from 24 to 25. 77% of all charter schools earned an A or a B. and the number of schools earning a D or F decreased from 117 schools in 2024 to only 71 schools in 2025, and that's a reduction of 47 schools. We also have a program that's going to start, first school will start when? In 27 Schools of Hope, or so 27, 28. And basically, we've got a operator out of New York City, of all places, who has gone into some really tough areas there, and they have ridiculous results, like 92% proficiency in math and reading, where that's way higher than what you get, across the country, when these were places that basically no one was willing to work in. So there's some areas that have failed, that have had, failing schools, that they're going to be able to go in and operate, kind of these schools of hope, which is a lifeline to the parents in these communities. And so I look forward to being able to do that. You hear some static out there, but they're going to take over, all these schools. No, you're talking about, a relatively modest number here. Maybe you'll have a half a dozen in Miami-Dade, maybe in Broward, and a handful of spots. Maybe someplace in Tampa. I don't know, but you'll definitely have some in Southern Florida. And you know what? If people don't want to go there, then don't go there. But I will tell you, when you have a recipe that has succeeded, parents are going to respond to that and respect that. So we're excited for what we've been able to do. We've obviously been the leader on this. We're ranked #1 in education freedom every year now. We're ranked #1 in parental empowerment every year now. And we're excited for that. Now, everything we said we would do, we've done on this. But if we have options to be able to make the experience even better, then we're going to do that. So last summer, Congress passed the reconciliation legislation, and in that was a federal tax credit opportunity for school choice. And the way it works is, and I think it'll be on your current tax year if you want to claim it, you will have an opportunity. So say you owe $10,000 in taxes, you can take $1,700 of that and direct it not to the federal government, but to the scholarship granting organizations. And so how much money is the program going to end up getting? It depends on what individual taxpayers do. We did, when our tax credit is corporate tax credit. I think that makes more sense than individual, just because the corporate, you can call up and say, hey, can you do this or whatever. There's only so many, people that are filing corporate taxes, and so you can really get a lot of people to do it. And I've had conversations over the years when they were getting attacked by activist media, kind of the woke mob. Oh, you're funding a scholarship where kids are going and they're teaching, Christian, oh my gosh, oh, that's bad. And so, but the thing is, some of these executives, they get spooked. They don't want controversy. But the lesson on all that is, that mob comes after you. If you blink, they know they've got you, and they'll keep coming back and back. If you tell them to pound sand, they'll squeal. They'll squeal. They will squeal. They'll squeal, but you know what? They're not gonna mess with you anymore, because they know you don't care. And so we had to kind of fortify some of the folks that were in our scholarship program on the corporate side. So the bottom line is, we don't really know how many taxpayers are going to opt into this or not. So we don't know exactly, and we don't know how many states are going to ultimately participate in this. But there is going to be some level of money to where students will be able to be eligible for some of these scholarships. And so this will start January of 2027. It's interesting, they basically said the states have to opt into it. I'm not sure why they did that, because, quite frankly, Florida, we've already done it, right? So a state that's inclined for school choice has probably done something on its own. Where you really need these scholarships, you need to get into Chicago and give these kids a lifeline, right? You need to get into Los Angeles. You need to get into some of these places, Baltimore, where they've had a lot of problems, but the unions control the education system. The Chicago Teachers Union, it's basically like Karl Marx, it reincarnated with their agenda. Very hyper left, hyper partisan, very mean during COVID to the students. They wanted the students out of school, locking the kids out. And then meanwhile, you'd see some of these folks in the Chicago Union, they'd be in the Bahamas just having a great time. You know, that's the kind of stuff you're doing. So really, really partisan political control over some of these school districts. But the problem is like, I don't think those states are going to opt into it. And so you're basically in a situation where probably it's going to be Republican states that are going to by and large opt into it. I don't know why you wouldn't opt into it, but I think it's just a political thing with school unions, because this will introduce some competition. But I think if you could airdrop in scholarships, you know, to people in the south side of Chicago, the union wouldn't like that, but boy, that could potentially be game-changing for those students. And so maybe they'll get there at some point, but as it stands now, states have to, you know, to opt in. So when we looked at it, obviously, philosophically, we're in favor of doing it. We want to make sure it's not going to subtract from what we're already doing or somehow do that. And I think they haven't finished the regulations. They're still working on it in the Treasury Department, but I think we're confident that this is something that could be beneficial. So on School Choice Week, you know, I can announce that Florida will be participating in this new federal education freedom tax credit. This will be something that will start January of 2027 for taxpayers to be able to do. This will allow students to get, so, you know, we basically have these ESAs. So, you know, if you're already paying tuition and you have everything, you could still get that and maybe do tutoring with it. Maybe you can do some additional supplies or books or other things to help advance the growth of your child. So it gives parents more resources, more options. We obviously, as these regulations are proposed, if there's anything in there that is somehow not going to be kosher for how Florida does it, we'll let them know. That's certainly not their intent. And so we just need to make sure that all that. But I think this could be something that's really meaningful. I think it'll supplement the great stuff we're already doing here. Probably is going to be pretty groundbreaking in states that have not yet gone down the road of school choice. But here we are further empowering residents and families to be able to make the most. And I'll tell you, you know, look around the country. You know, we've got these scholarships with the kids for special needs. You know, they go to these schools, and that's what the school is geared towards. I can tell you those schools would not exist without our scholarship programs. I mean, that's how they basically are able to operate. And so we've had parents that will move from other states to Florida because they used to call them Gardner scholarships. I guess they changed. I don't know why they changed, or they changed the name on it. But it was really good, and it still is good. So you have that. The homeschooling. We have one of the biggest homeschool populations. Where do we rank in homeschooling? Do you know? At the top. Well, you know who actually is good, and you know, so we do good in homeschool because we embrace it and we empower. I think California has a lot of homeschool too, because they're running for cover. That's why they're doing it. It's like, you know, they don't want their second grader taught that there are 97 genders, and so they just like they're opting out. They're done. Sorry. So I think they have a pretty big, but we have a big population too, and we're really, really proud of that. Proud of our charters. I mean, proud, we're doing like classical academies. I mean, I was just talking to a friend of mine that runs one of them up in Northeast Florida. Classical education in a charter setting, and it's very high quality. You have more specialty schools that can develop that focus on certain, not niche, but certain specialties. And that's really, really positive. So I think the best is yet to come, because as we've empowered parents, you now have the ability to almost like mix and match the education experiences. You know, with our program, if you had a group of homeschool parents, they could pool some of their ESA money, and they could bring, like, maybe there's a good teacher at like the local public school in government. Then, well, you could do and hire to come in and teach the dozen kids that are being homeschooled. You can do all kinds of things that I think are really innovative. So I want to thank everybody for being a part of that. I think this is going to supplement our efforts in a good way. What we don't want is the schools to just simply see this money's there and then raise the tuition. That's not what we want. We want the parents to actually benefit. So we'll be watching on that and seeing kind of how all that shakes out with that. And then, you know, we do have some private schools that don't accept the scholarship. And we disagree with that. I mean, I think that they'll say, well, you know, we just don't want to be entangled with anything. But, you know, that's not what the state has done. The parent is the one that's ultimately directing it, not us. And so they're doing it. I think it's just because, you know, they don't necessarily want to have people from lower demographics going to the school. And I think that's unfortunate because, you know, you have opportunities to really lift people up. But nevertheless, I think 90-some% do accept it. And we're thankful that they accept it. So, all right, well, we'll hear from our Hammer Education Secretary, Stasi Kamutus. Come on up.
Well, good morning, Grace Christian. It's so great to be back here. I know we were here just a few months ago with an exciting announcement, and to be back here at a school that I know is providing a world-class education. As Commissioner of Education, I love to come to schools like this because I know that you are prioritizing student education. I know that your teachers are coming to work every day to make sure that they are delivering a world-class education. And a fun fact, actually, the governor's communications director, Alex Lanfranconi, is a graduate of Grace Christian Academy. Thank you, Principal, for hosting us today. It's great to be back here. And thank you, Governor, for bringing us together for this very important announcement. As you said, we are halfway through School Choice Week, and a week it is to celebrate educational freedom and the opportunity that it is providing to students across the state, and hopefully now with this important announcement across the nation. In Florida, that principle guides all that we do, and our students are better off because of it. This week has been a time to showcase Florida's leadership in building the largest and most comprehensive school choice program in the nation. At a time when many states were beholden to education monopolies, this governor demonstrated the leadership that he always does and expanded our school choice program to universal school choice in 2023, truly being a model to the nation. And our students are benefiting. He rattled off all these numbers, but in a state that has about 2.8 million students, did you know nearly 1.4 million of our students are benefiting from a school choice option? Whether that's the more than 400,000 students that are in charter schools, which is the highest in our state's history, or the over 530,000 students that are participating in a scholarship to attend a private school. Again, the highest in our state's history. And with respect to homeschool programs, about 10 years ago, we were at 77,000 students. Today, we're over 150,000 students that are benefiting from a homeschool program. We are providing choice to families, and we are truly empowering parents here in the state of Florida. Now, today's announcement builds on that momentum by further strengthening our already robust school choice programs. Through the One Big Beautiful Bill that President Trump introduced and signed, there is a new federal tax credit scholarship that is designed to expand educational options without using public spending. And so this will supplement our state's program. I want to commend the President and Secretary McMahon for implementing this, as well as dismantling the bureaucracy that is the United States Department of Education. And by opting into this program, Florida will now enable more low-income families to pursue private schools, homeschooling options, and other educational opportunities that best meet their child's needs. The more that we're able to fund these families, the more it seems like a likely opportunity for their child to benefit from school choice. And so Governor DeSantis' vision for school choice has already produced incredible results. He talked about the 71% of our schools that are A and B schools, up from 64% last year. That's nearly 250 schools that are now an A or B school that weren't like that the year before. Hundreds of students, thousands in some cases, of students going to these schools that are now benefiting. We talked about the 77% of the charter schools that are also now A and B schools. And a stat that I'm really proud of, we went from 117 DNF schools last year to now 70, down from 47. That is huge for families across the state because Florida continues to deliver meaningful academic gains for all types of schools. Florida also achieved a historic 92.2% graduation rate, which is the highest in our state's history. And just last summer, we talked about our proficiency in English and mathematics, where students in English language arts are now, from the inception of progress monitoring, about 115,000 more students are demonstrating proficiency in English language arts, and about 100,000 students in math. That's hundreds of thousands of students and families across our state that are benefiting from school choice. Why? Because as school choice has expanded, student achievement has risen. Competition drives better results, and we are seeing that across the board here in the state of Florida. School choice is not about elevating one educational opportunity over another. It is about ensuring that every child is in an environment where they are able to best learn. And participation in this federal tax credit scholarship program will give Florida parents even more options to best meet their children's needs. National School Choice Week highlights the transformative power of educational freedom. And here in Florida, that principle is central to our work, and our students are thriving because of it. As other states look for answers, Florida stands as proof that when you put students first and you empower parents, stronger educational outcomes will always follow. So thank you, and God bless you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. On behalf of my wife and our staff and students, we're thrilled to welcome the governor back to Grace Christian for the second time. We're proud to have you on our campus, and we're certainly proud to have you as our governor. You know, I'm generally a proponent of term limits, but I wish there was an exception that we could make in your case. I say to the governor, thank you for your consistent leadership on behalf of the families of Florida. When COVID hit, the governor chose freedom over fear and made it possible for schools like ours to stay open. He never forced masks, kept teachers in the classroom, and you protected our rights to worship in person. You are the reason we call this the free state of Florida. Today, obviously, the focus is on educational freedom. Our school, Grace Christian, is in its 52nd year educating young men and women in a truly Christian setting. We're thankful to the governor and education commissioner for all that they've done to expand school choice in our state. And the results do speak volumes. We have more than 700 students and a yearly wait list of hundreds of families trying to get into our school. The overwhelming majority of these families would not be able to afford a private Christian education without this program. And as our students come here, we're able to educate them in a Christian environment. We're able to freely talk about the gospel, that Jesus Christ died for our sins, was buried, and rose again for all of mankind. We're able to use the Bible as the standard to teach our children, not just how to make a living, but truly how to live. In fact, we have a number of our students here. We have some sophomores and juniors in our newly formed Turning Point USA group. Give them a hand. I know that these students and their parents at Grace Christian are so thankful for this program and the opportunities it affords them. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you, Commissioner Stassi. I talked to Alex this morning. This is great because I talked to Alex. He's like, "Are you nervous talking around the governor?" I said, "I'm only nervous about saying Stassi's name." He said, "Stassi's one of us. Just call him Stassi." So there you go. But thank you so much. I'm prayerful that whoever leads our state next will have the same convictions and resolve as this great governor. Thank you for being here.
Well, it's a great week for school choice. We're proud of what we've been able to do, but if we have an opportunity to even help people a little bit more with this federal tax credit education freedom scholarship that's going to be coming down the pike, we're going to do it. So we'll see that will all come to fruition. Probably, I guess, what would that be? The 27, 28 school year would be. They wouldn't be able to do it in 26, probably, right? Yeah. So you're looking a little bit while. So you juniors, you'll be gone, I think. But anyone who's in elementary, middle, or early high school, you'll be able to benefit from this, hopefully in a really, really good way. Okay. We got any questions back there? Yep.
Governor, can you confirm as to whether you're going to have an announcement next week with the baseball commissioner regarding the Rays, and in your view, what type of deal is coming together to build the stadium? Is it going to be good for the taxpayers?
Well, I can't confirm anything until something's public, but I'm a believer that baseball can succeed in Tampa Bay. Just having. Having grown up in the region, we had so many people that love baseball, and honestly, very few hockey relative. And yet, look how successful the hockey team is at drawing fans. So I think people want to participate. I think you got to have a venue that makes sense for them to travel to. And I think that just in this day and age, I think you got to have some other stuff, around it. So I know that there's a vision from the Rays leadership to not only have a stadium, but to have accoutrements around it, where you have restaurants and hotels and other things, shopping, so that it's something that even if you don't like baseball, you'd still maybe have fun going out and doing it. And so I know they're working on looking at venues, and they're going to work with whatever local governments on that. But I will say this. They're trying. It's the Tampa Bay Rays, and I think that they're saying they want it to be in Tampa Bay. I can tell you, there's other parts of Florida, like Orlando, that would want the team. I know Disney would put it at the Wide World of Sports. I mean, why not, right? You could do it near the convention center in Orange County. So, I know that, and they had been trying to get a team, expansion team, for that. And I think they could easily be playing off each other. But I think their basic view is Tampa Bay Rays. You want to make sure that you do it here and do something that can be meaningful. But I remember when. There's been a lot of scuttle over many years about this, and Major League Baseball's position was because it was like maybe they'll move the Rays out of Florida. They wanted to split Montreal, half the whatever, and then just there's other cities that they were looking at. And I think Major League Baseball's thing is like, look, Florida is like, the fastest growing state, or certainly has been for most years of the last, 6 or 7. It would be an admission of failure on baseball's part if they can't succeed, in Florida, especially in a market like Tampa that has grown tremendously and has a lot of people that really like baseball. So I think they're committed to making sure that it can succeed in Florida as well. Our role is a little bit more, not indirect, but the HCC has this thing. They have a chance to increase their campus vitality, I think, in ways that can be good. I've toured that campus. Some of these buildings are old. You got to put all this money in deferred maintenance, and maybe you just reimagine it. I'd rather spend the money like that. And then we have some state buildings in that plot that honestly our juvenile justice has always planned to leave, so that's going to leave no matter what happens. And then we've got one that we lease to the county, and there's a FDLE that's always wanted to leave there. So our role could be to just help HCC negotiate something that's going to be good for them and be good for the Rays, and we're happy to do that. I just as governor, it's like I wanted to succeed in Florida first of all. But I do think Tampa Bay, that's where the team was birthed, and we do want to see it succeed in this region. I think it can succeed 100%. I think it can succeed. The Bucks have done well, especially when they're good. And they were great for the first half of the season, not good the second half. So that was frustrating. The Lightning have done tremendous, but you have certain ingredients there that make it something that's really, really special. So I think that. From what I've seen out of the team now, they understand that kind of the assignment in terms of how do you make this something that's viable over the long term. and how do you get enough fan interest, to be able to do it? And I know they've looked I know Pinellas, there was Rocky with trying to get something there, so they're looking more at Hillsborough, all this other stuff. I mean, obviously, here where we are now, you guys would rather it be, by Raymond James, right? It's just an easier commute to you. If you live in downtown St. Pete, you'd probably rather it be there. But, even me as a Pinellas kid, Dunedin, where I grew up, probably would be quicker to get to the Raymond James area than it would be to get to the Trop, traffic-wise. I think you do that. So I think you'd still draw a lot of people from Pinellas. There's no question. Yes?
Can you talk about school choice a little bit more? The audit came out on vouchers and how the money wasn't necessarily being used appropriately. What can your office do if the legislature doesn't come to a solution?
Well, they are going to. I mean, the Florida Senate has passed legislation along this line. We're going to get something done on that. I mean, think about it. This is more school choice than every other state in the country combined. There's administrative issues that go into that. And to be able to identify and then have a glitch bill that looks to see and gets things going, within a couple years of this really launching at full thing, that's what you're supposed to do. And so we definitely think we'll be able to make the necessary improvements and to kind of keep going. But, let's also just put that, in its proper context. This has been massively successful for many, many people in this state, hundreds of thousands. I get, if I'm walking in like a gas station, like people come up, there's certain things they say, right, in terms of, during COVID it was thank you, whatever, saved my job, thanks for not telling them that I didn't have to take the shot, whatever that, thanks for having my kids in school, thanks for liberating them from masks, all that, but as we got beyond that, a lot of thanks for the scholarship. Thanks for the scholarship. I mean, people are very, very grateful. So it's made a huge, huge difference in the lives of a lot of people, and we'll make sure that we get it done. But I think what the legislature has done with what the Senate's been doing, I think makes a lot of sense in getting this thing, in the best possible, posture moving forward.
And Governor, there's a federal hearing right now in Fort Myers involving DHS, alligator Alcatraz, and immigrant groups, ACLU. What is your stance on the federal government, how it's handling immigration enforcement, and how is the state still involved with the facilities down south?
So the facilities are sanctioned by the feds, reimbursed by the feds, and the media's like, oh, they haven't gotten $600 million. We haven't spent $600 million. That was an authorization at the beginning. That's going to obviously take a lot of time to get there. We've been approved for the reimbursement, and that will happen. But once DHS decides who goes in, whether that's the depot in Baker, whether that's the alligator facility, they decide who, and then our folks that we have in these positions, they process them. They stage them. There's immigration judges now on site at both of these facilities, hopefully rapid processing. I mean, here's the thing. Look, if you really have a right to be here, then you shouldn't be, involved with immigration authorities. You should go on your way. But, if you don't have a right to be here, we should, determine that quickly and finally, and then repatriate you to your home country. And so you're having that there. So they're in both of those facilities, and then DHS will then take from there. So they run flights out of the airport down at Alligator Alcatraz, which is right on site. That's one of the reasons why that facility was identified, because you literally just drive them a couple thousand feet, they go on a plane and gone. Baker County, we like that because it was a pre-existing facility. It didn't cost us a lot of money to stand it up. Even though we get reimbursed, we still want to do things as economically as possible. So they have to usually they go to Lake City Airport, which isn't far, but you got to get them in a van and kind of go from there. So we've been able to help effectuate a lot comparative to what the previous 4 years of deportation flights out of the state of Florida. And our state, and look, it's interesting. Remember, January of 2025, a few weeks before Donald Trump took office, I called a special session of the Florida legislature. Why? Because I said the American people want immigration solved. They they want the border stopped, but then they also realize you can't have 10 million people come in under Biden and just stay, that you have to have enforcement and removal operations. But I also understood that there are issues with doing that effectively. So we did a lot of stuff in that special session that I called, the main thing was making sure that all state and local law enforcement agencies had a duty to assist DHS with interior enforcement. And now look at, and a lot of people at the time, we had a little turbulence with the legislature, like all the voters who were keyed in on it were like, we need to do it, and so we did it. We got it done. I think the voters made themselves clear in that. But even then at the time, I mean, they kind of, knew that we needed to be strong, but I don't think people fully appreciated how important it was to ensure that these local officials and our state agencies are on the same team, with DHS in this. I don't want a Minneapolis mayor situation in Florida. Well, guess what? Because of that legislation that we insisted on, if you did have a situation where they were trying to, well, one, if they were even non-cooperative, refusing to cooperate, but if they try to sabotage especially, we have the ability to remove them from office, suspend them from their positions. And so there's real teeth into what we're doing. So we saw that would be. Now think about what's unfolded since then. Florida, you have this. We have almost 20,000 apprehensions of illegal aliens between our local and state law enforcement, and that's in addition to what DHS is doing on their own. And so they probably have done twice that many just in the last pretty much 9 months is when this stuff really started to ramp up. But everyone knows their duties. Everyone knows they've got to cooperate. I understand some will be show a little more zeal in doing that than others, but you cannot not cooperate, and you definitely can't sabotage because there'll be consequences. Well, if every state did that, you would not have some of the problems that we're seeing, around the country. That's just a fact. You have governor, mayor in some of these states, Minnesota and others, where, one, they refuse to cooperate. Why would you not? I mean, think about it. I don't care what your view is on immigration, but if you have someone who's here illegally and they commit crimes in your state and violate your state law, and then they're getting out of prison, why would you not have DHS come pick them up and send them home? Why would you release them into your communities? That's really, really problematic that you would do that. So that's just like the bare minimum of cooperation that you would want to do. They don't even do that. They don't do that in California in some of these places. But then you have kind of the next thing where they're really whipping up. And look, you can protest against this all you want, but that's different from impeding their ability to operate, from trying to sabotage the proper functions of federal law enforcement. And if you don't like the fact that someone here illegally is going to be returned to their home country, you can run for office promising a big amnesty. You can do that. You have the freedom to do that. You won't win if you do that, but you have the freedom to do that. So what they're doing is really, it's a form of interposition, basically, because it's funny, it's not funny, it's sad. When Biden was in, we did legislation saying it's illegal to enter the state of Florida if you're an illegal alien. And the court said, no, that's immigration's federal. You can't be creating your own crimes relating to immigration. It's all the federal government. So they will try to handicap and handcuff states that want to see federal immigration law enforced fully and the way it's written. Then you have a change of administration. They're trying to enforce, these laws, but then it's somehow okay for state and local to just kneecap the enforcement of that so that it's hard to get done. And you know what? They're doxing these agents. They're trying to create an environment where these people are harmed. So it's a very difficult situation when if you're on the street there and you have a target on your back. I mean, you've got people that are very well organized, and they're not just there to protest. I mean, some of these people are there to really stop what's going on and take matters into their own hands. And that's a really, really toxic situation, but it's been created because of some of these politicians and what they're doing. So Florida's been the opposite. We laid down the law very quickly. I understood. I saw what could happen if you didn't do what we did. We did it. I was right at the time, and obviously now, looking in hindsight, we were doubly right to do it. All right, thanks, everybody. God bless.